Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Thompson just hit that speak button. You and I are going to have a conversation, if that's all right. I'm really interested in this whole process, and you mentioned to Congressman Heiss that there are three purposes for the census. And in many of the constituents I talk to, there's really two reasons we have a census. One is to determine how many people are in America, and two, where they live. And is that a fair summary of the primary purpose of the census?
As I said before, the first purpose of the census, well, first off, our goal is to count everybody in the United States once and only once in the right place. Then the first major use of the census is by December 31st of the census year, which would be 2020 in this case, we provide 50 numbers that are used to reapportion the Congress of the United States. The next major deliverable for the census is between January and the end of March. We work with the states to provide them the data that they need to do redistricting. And then the next purpose is we conduct the American Community Survey, which is part of the decennial census. And that is used to allocate federal program dollars.
Okay, and that last purpose is not in the Constitution. That's a statutory purpose. Yeah, I told you, just leave that button on. We're going to have a nice conversation. That's a statutory purpose.
Yeah, it's statutory in our Title 13, which directs the Census Bureaus how to collect information.
Okay, and that survey asked a lot of questions that most of us would consider personal questions. You try to determine wealth, you try to determine ethnicity and race and many things about us as individuals.
Yes, Congressman, we do. We believe that the American Community Survey is one, very necessary to the federal government to allocate over $400 billion of funds on an annual basis. And it's also used by businesses, it's used by community planners to make more informed decisions.
My question was real simple. It asked personal questions.
It asks questions to support federal programs, yes, yes.
Okay, and those, I'm not going to get into I was trying to be civil about this, but okay. It asked questions. I didn't ask you what the purpose of them was. It asked questions about individuals and their personal characteristics. And many of my constituents find that offensive. And I'm wondering, is that the first time you've ever heard that?
Congressman, we heard, let me back up. So over a year ago, we had heard great concerns from the Congress. So I tried to visit with every member, House and Senate, Appropriations and Oversight, to understand the concerns about the survey. And as a result of that, we are doing a lot of work to try to address those concerns.
So you have also heard that people find those invasive, and some people find those to be offensive. And I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I heard your answer.
Yeah.
And you know, for example, I have a good friend who did a DNA check for some reason and found out that he is not who he thought he was. In fact, I've seen commercials on TV for Ancestry.com. I'm not doing a commercial for them, but they talk about people that have done ancestry checks. You're not suggesting that someone is giving a false statement to the government because they didn't do a DNA check and they don't really know who they are. They just know what their parents told them. That would not be something that the Census is interested in, and the Census Bureau is interested in doing.
No, we believe in self-response.
Right, and that is a perception. I mean, we have perceptions now about gender identity. We have perceptions about all sorts of issues that are personal on the census. And my question, I guess, and my point is it not counterproductive to ask people questions that they consider offensive, that they consider invasive, and at the same time try to gather the data that is constitutionally required, and that is how many people live in this country and where do they live?
So we work very hard to explain to the people that respond to these, both the census, the American Survey, Community Survey, and all of our surveys that we do, the importance of responding, why, how the data are used, why it's so vital to our country.
And it's vital to our country because the federal government has decided that it is going to get into education and transportation and all sorts of issues through the allocation of money and control those issues. And many people find that offensive, that the federal government does that. And what I'm suggesting to you is that the breadth of this survey that you are giving undermines the constitutional requirement that we know how many people live in this country and where they live so that we can have a political system that fairly reflects the one man, one vote, or one person, one vote standard that we all consider so important. So I would, you and I haven't had this conversation, or I haven't had a conversation with your staff, but I have great concerns about the intrusiveness of the census that is taken in this country, and I yield back.